The great crystal towers of Zentara Prime reached up into the purple sky like giant fingers made of light. Inside the biggest tower, the Galactic Council was meeting. 47 different alien races sat in their special chairs, each one designed for their unique bodies. Some had 4 arms, others had wings, and a few looked like giant bugs with too many eyes. Jake Morrison sat in the corner with the small human group. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Next to him sat Captain Lisa Hayes, a woman in a blue uniform with gold buttons. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and she kept one hand on her communication device. Dr. Ben Carter, a thin man, with thick glasses, tapped quietly on his tablet computer. The 3 humans looked very small compared to the other aliens in the room. Most of the alien delegates were much bigger than humans. The Calithian Chancellor had 4 long arms and skin that changed colors when he got angry. The Thraxian delegate looked like a giant ant, standing on 2 legs with clicking sounds coming from his mouth. Jake had been coming to these meetings for 5 years now. He had watched the other races argue about trade routes and mining rights and who could build colonies where. The humans usually stayed quiet and tried to help when asked. They had stopped wars, helped with disasters, and saved many lives across the galaxy. But today felt different. The aliens were all looking at the human section with angry eyes. Jake could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Chancellor Vex stood up from his tall chair. His 4 arms moved as he talked, and his skin turned a deep red color. Fellow council members, we have a serious problem that we can no longer ignore. The room got very quiet. Even the Thraxian stopped his clicking sounds. The humans have become a danger to our peaceful galaxy, Chancellor Vex continued. They do not follow our rules. They build colonies wherever they want. They get involved in fights that are not their business. Hivemind Zek, the giant bug-like Thraxian, made loud clicking noises that meant he agreed. The humans spread their wild ideas to young races. They make other species think they can act without permission from the council. Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he did not move or speak. Lisa Hayes put her hand on her weapon, not to threaten anyone, but because it made her feel better when she was angry. Dr. Ben Carter looked at his tablet screen. The numbers showed the truth that these aliens did not want to see. In the past 10 years, humans had stopped 3 different races from being completely destroyed. They had ended 2 major wars before millions died. They had helped rebuild planets after natural disasters struck dozens of worlds. But the council only saw problems. They saw humans helping weak races stand up to strong ones. They saw humans sharing technology that made life better for everyone. They saw humans refusing to bow down and follow orders without question. The human colonies take resources that belong to established council members, said Delegate Morta from the Crystalline Empire. Her voice sounded like glass breaking. They refuse to pay proper taxes to the council treasury. They give weapons and defensive technology to primitive species, added Sub-Commander Krill from the Aquatic Federation. Water dripped from his gills as he spoke. This upsets the natural balance of power that has kept peace for centuries. Jake finally stood up. The room became completely silent. All eyes turned to the human ambassador. He was not the biggest or strongest being in the room, but something about the way he stood made everyone pay attention. Is there a specific charge you want to make against humanity? Jake asked. His voice was calm and steady. Chancellor Vex's skin turned an even deeper red. We charge humanity with repeated violations of council authority, unauthorized expansion into restricted space, and interference in local conflicts without proper authorization. And your decision? Jake asked. The Galactic Council hereby expels humanity from membership. All human colonies, stations, and military forces must leave council space immediately. You have 1 standard month to remove all human presence from our territories. The other delegates nodded their heads or made whatever sounds meant agreement in their species. They looked pleased with themselves, like children who had just solved a difficult puzzle. Jake looked around the room one more time. He saw the Velkin delegate who had begged for human help when pirates attacked their mining ships. He saw the Centauri representative whose people were dying from a plague that human doctors were working to cure. He saw dozens of species that had been helped by humans but were now too afraid to speak up. "Very well," Jake said quietly. "We will be gone within the week." The aliens looked surprised. They had expected the humans to argue, to beg, to threaten, or to make deals. Instead, Jake simply picked up his papers and started walking toward the exit. Captain Lisa Hayes and Dr. Ben Carter followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. At the great doors, Jake turned around one last time. 7 days, he said. After that, you will not see another human ship in Council space. The doors closed behind the 3 humans with a soft sound. In the great chamber, 47 alien races sat in silence, wondering if they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Chancellor Vex tried to feel proud of what they had accomplished, but something cold was growing in his stomach. For the first time in years, the galaxy would have to face its problems without human help. Outside the crystal towers, Jake Morrison looked up at the purple sky and activated his communication device. "This is Ambassador Morrison to all human assets in Council space. Operation Homecoming is now active. Begin immediate withdrawal from all Council territories. Message ends." The die was cast, and there was no going back. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Phoenix, the largest human ship in space. The message from Earth had come through the quantum communication system just hours ago. President Alex Thompson himself had signed the order, and it was simple: bring everyone home. Kate was a woman who had spent 30 years in space. She had fought pirates, negotiated with alien traders, and helped rescue ships in trouble. She had never expected to receive an order like this one. "Operation Homecoming," she read aloud to her bridge crew. "All human assets to withdraw immediately from Galactic Council territory." Her communications officer, Lieutenant Mike Chen, looked confused. "Ma'am, that means everyone. The colonies, the research stations, the mining operations. Everything." "I know what it means, Lieutenant," Kate said. She pressed a button that would send the message to every human settlement, ship, and station in known space. "Begin immediate withdrawal. All humans return to designated rally points." Across thousands of star systems, the Great Withdrawal began. It happened so fast that it seemed like magic to the aliens who watched it. Human colonies that had taken decades to build were packed up in days. Space stations went dark as their crews departed. Ships that had protected trade routes for years simply vanished. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Foreman Danny Rodriguez supervised the shutdown of the largest titanium extraction operation in the sector. Danny was a big man with strong hands and a kind face. He had worked on this planet for 8 years, turning raw rock into the materials that built starships. The native Velkan workers gathered around him as he shut down the quantum extractors. The Velkans looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and large black eyes. They had always been peaceful people who just wanted to work and take care of their families. "But who will run the machines?" asked Vel 9, the senior Velkan engineer. His voice carried the worry that all his people felt. "Who will protect us from the Harkin pirates?" Danny looked at the machines he was shutting down. These extractors could pull pure titanium from solid rock using quantum technology that no other race in the galaxy understood. Without humans to maintain them, they would break down within months. "The Council will figure something out," Danny said. But he did not sound like he believed it. "We were just workers here, now we have to go home." The same scene was happening on hundreds of worlds. Dr. Amy Foster packed up her medical research station, where she had been working on a cure for the Red Death plague that was killing millions in the Centauri colonies. Her laboratory held 10 years of research and was only months away from finding a cure. Engineer Rick Barnes powered down the massive defense grid that protected the trade lanes between the core worlds and the rim territories. This system of weapons and sensors had stopped countless pirate attacks and kept merchant ships safe. Without it, the trade routes would become hunting grounds for criminals. The most painful evacuation happened at Sanctuary Station. Commander Steve Walsh had built this facility to help refugees from wars and disasters. Thousands of beings from dozens of different races had found safety there when their own governments could not or would not help them. Steve was a veteran soldier who had seen too much war and death. He had built Sanctuary Station because he believed that every life had value no matter what species or planet someone came from. Now he had to abandon the people who needed help the most. "Where will we go?" asked Kithra, a female Sophian holding her small child. The Sophians looked like humans with golden skin and silver hair. 3 years ago, the brutal sectarian empire had invaded their world and killed 90% of their people. Only a few thousand Sophians were left alive in the entire galaxy. Steve looked down at the child in her arms. The little one had been born on Sanctuary Station and had never known any other home. "The council promised they would take care of refugees," he said. "I am sure they will find a place for you." But Steve knew the truth. The council had big words about helping people, but they had never actually done much. They were too busy arguing about politics and trade agreements to worry about orphans and refugees. Kithra's large eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. The Sophians had learned not to cry because it might attract the attention of their enemies. "Thank you for everything you did for us," she said quietly. Steve felt his heart breaking, but orders were orders. The humans were leaving, and there was nothing he could do about it. On merchant vessels throughout the galaxy, human crews received the recall order and immediately changed course for home. Captain Nicole Turner had been running supplies to mining colonies in the Outer Rim for 15 years. Her ship, the Lucky Strike, was loaded with food and medicine for settlements that depended on regular deliveries to survive. "But Captain," said her first officer, "the Epsilon colony has only 2 weeks of food left. If we do not deliver these supplies, people will starve." Nicole stared at the navigation display showing the course back to human space. "I know, but we have our orders. Send a message to the Colonial Administration. Tell them to contact the Council for Emergency Supplies." She knew the council would be too slow to help. By the time they organized a relief mission, if they bothered to organize one at all, the colonists would be dead. On military bases and defensive platforms, human soldiers and technicians worked around the clock to shut down weapon systems and defensive grids. These installations had protected peaceful alien worlds from aggressive neighbors for decades. Major Paul Brooks commanded the defense platform at Wolf 359, which guarded the shipping lanes used by 5 different alien races. His weapons could destroy enemy fleets before they got close enough to threaten civilian ships. "Sir, the hexapod freighters are asking why we are leaving," reported his communications sergeant. "Their trade convoy is scheduled to come through next week." Paul looked at the tactical display showing known pirate fleets in the area. Without the defense platform, those freighters would be sitting ducks. "Tell them to contact the Council for naval escort. We will not be here to protect them." Within 6 days, humanity had vanished from Council space like they had never existed. The only signs left behind were empty buildings, confused alien populations, and systems that no longer worked because only humans knew how to fix them. The speed and completeness of the withdrawal shocked even the council members who had voted for it. They had expected the humans to argue and delay, maybe even ignore the order completely. Instead, the humans had simply packed up and left without a single complaint or angry word. As the last human ships crossed the boundary into uncharted space, Admiral Kate Sullivan sent one final message to the Galactic Council. "Withdrawal complete, good luck." 3 months after the humans left, the galaxy started to fall apart. The rimward colonies were hit first and hit hard. These were the frontier worlds on the edge of known space, far from the safety of the core systems. Without human patrol ships, watching the space lanes, pirates came out of hiding like hungry wolves. Captain Zed Blacktooth commanded the largest pirate fleet in the sector. He was a brutal Karkaran with metal teeth and scars covering his reptilian face. For years, human warships had kept him and his raiders trapped in the asteroid fields, where they could only attack small, undefended ships. "The humans are gone," he told his fleet commanders over the communication system. "Now we take everything we want." Within weeks, pirate attacks increased by 400%. Merchant ships that had traveled safely for decades were captured or destroyed. Entire colonies were raided for slaves and supplies. The space routes that had been the economic backbone of a dozen species became hunting grounds where only the Strongest survived. On Nexus Prime, Governor Tarvel of the Hexapod Consortium received reports that made his 6 legs shake with fear. The hexapods looked like giant spiders but were peaceful traders who had never hurt anyone. "Sir, another convoy was destroyed near the Veil Nebula," his aide reported with a trembling voice. "That makes 5 this week. The pirates took all the cargo and captured 200 workers for the slave markets." "Where are the Council enforcement fleets?" Tarvel demanded. "They promised to maintain order in human absence. They are spread too thin, sir. The Council has 12 enforcement ships trying to patrol space that the humans covered with over 300 vessels. It is impossible." The Council had never realized how much work the humans had been doing. They thought the galaxy was naturally peaceful and that the humans were just causing trouble. Now they learned that the peace had only existed because human ships were always ready to fight the troublemakers. On the plague worlds of the Centauri system, people were dying faster than they could be buried. The Red Death had already killed 50 million beings, and the number grew every day. Dr. Amy Foster's research had been so close to finding a cure, but the Galactic Health Authority could not understand her work. Dr. Ylex Prime was the best medical researcher the Council had, but even he was lost when he looked at Amy's notes. "These human calculations make no sense," he complained to his assistants. "They use mathematical concepts that our universities do not teach." "Can we contact Dr. Foster and ask for help?" suggested his junior researcher. "The humans are gone," Dr. Ylex Prime said bitterly. "They took their knowledge with them, and now millions will die because of Council pride." The cure that could have saved countless lives sat unfinished in an abandoned laboratory, while entire worlds begged for help that would never come. But the worst crisis was happening in sectarian space. The sectarian empire had always been aggressive warmongers who wanted to conquer other species. For decades, human diplomats and military forces had kept them under control. When the sectarians attacked weaker neighbors, human fleets would arrive to defend the victims. Emperor Sector was a massive warrior with 4 arms and a hunger for conquest that could never be satisfied. He had been waiting for years for the chance to expand his empire without human interference. "The human protectors are gone," he announced to his war council. "Now we will take what should have always been ours." The sectarian war fleets launched attacks against 6 different species at the same time. The peaceful Andorians were overrun in days. The crystal cities of the Luminar were shattered by orbital bombardment. The ocean worlds of the Aquatic Federation were poisoned to kill the inhabitants. Without human support, the defending species had no chance. The Council tried to organize a response, but they moved too slowly and argued too much. By the time they agreed on a plan, entire star systems had already fallen to sectarian conquest. The refugee crisis became a nightmare that spread across the galaxy. Sanctuary Station sat empty and dark, its systems slowly failing without human maintenance. The thousands of beings who had depended on human protection were scattered to overcrowded camps on Council worlds. Kithra and her child ended up in Camp 7 on the industrial world of Pharos Prime. The camp was designed for 500 refugees but now held over 3,000. There was not enough food, not enough medicine, and not enough hope. "Mama, when are we going home?" her little daughter asked. Kithra held her child close and tried not to cry. Their homeworld was a radioactive wasteland controlled by sectarian forces. There was no home to go back to, and the Council seemed to have forgotten that refugees existed. The camp administrator was a tired Pharasan bureaucrat named Dek Wan, who had never wanted this job. "I am sorry, but we cannot provide more rations," he told the refugee representatives. "The Council budget for humanitarian aid has been exceeded." "Children are starving," Kithra said quietly. "Surely the Great Galactic Council can find a way to feed children." Dekwan looked away in shame. "The Council is dealing with many crises right now. Refugee care is not their top priority. It never had been their top priority. That was why the Yoi humans had built Sanctuary Station in the first place. On Zentara Prime, Chancellor Vex tried to maintain control as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. His skin changed colors rapidly as his stress levels increased. The carefully balanced galactic order that the Council had maintained for centuries was collapsing faster than anyone thought possible. "Perhaps we made an error," admitted Councillor Dexmu of the Altarian Federation during an emergency session. "The humans were providing services that we failed to account for." Hive mind Zek remained stubborn even as his own trade routes fell to pirate attacks. "We cannot show weakness by begging them to return. The Council's authority must remain absolute." But authority over what? Every week brought news of more disasters, more wars, more suffering. The species that had voted to expel humanity were now paying the price for their decision. The economic systems that humans had helped build were falling apart. Trade agreements collapsed when no one could enforce them. Mining operations shut down when the equipment broke and no one knew how to fix it. Scientific research stopped because human knowledge was needed to continue the work. Most frightening of all was the growing realization that the humans had not just been doing jobs that others could take over. They had been the glue that held galactic civilization together. Without them, everything was coming apart. As the 8th month of human absence began, even the proudest council members were starting to admit the truth. The galaxy needed humanity back, but pride and politics made it impossible to say so out loud. The great experiment in galactic government without human interference was failing, and everyone could see the results written in smoke and blood across the stars. 8 months after throwing humanity out of the galaxy, Chancellor Vex faced the most shameful moment of his long political career. He stood before an emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, his forearms shaking and his skin cycling through colors that showed his deep embarrassment. The great chamber that had once buzzed with confident voices was now filled with desperate whispers and worried faces. Half the council members had bags under their eyes from too many sleepless nights dealing with crises. The other half looked angry enough to start fights with anyone who disagreed with them. "Fellow council members," Chancellor Vex began, his voice much quieter than usual. "We must face the reality of our situation. The current galactic crisis requires all available resources and expertise." He paused, knowing that his next words would change everything. "We must reconsider our previous decision regarding humanity." The chamber erupted in angry shouts and clicking sounds and various alien curses. Some delegates demanded that Vex resign for even suggesting such a thing. Others jumped to their feet and waved their arms or tentacles or whatever appendages they had, but the shouting did not last long because everyone knew the truth. The galaxy was burning, and they needed help to put out the fires. The vote was unanimous, though many delegates looked like they were swallowing poison as they agreed. The Council authorized a diplomatic mission to contact Earth and negotiate humanity's return to galactic civilization. There was just one small problem. Nobody knew where the humans had gone. Ambassador Krelan of the Andromedian Trade Guild was chosen to lead the search mission. She was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and large blue eyes that could see in 17 different spectrums of light. Her people had always been good at finding things that were lost. The Council ship Peacemaker was the fastest vessel in the fleet, equipped with the most advanced sensors and communication equipment that galactic science could produce. Krelan stood on its bridge as they approached the Sol system, humanity's birthplace. "Beginning sensor sweep of Earth space," reported the navigation officer, a young crystalline named Shard Dancer. "I am detecting no active signals from Earth orbital stations." They flew past Luna, humanity's ancient moon base, but it was dark and empty. The massive shipyards around Mars that had built hundreds of human vessels showed no signs of life. Even the asteroid mining stations between Mars and Jupiter were abandoned. "It is like they just vanished into nothing," whispered Scout Prime 7, a young Thraxian who had never seen anything like this before. "How does an entire species disappear?" Krelan felt a chill run through her silver skin. The humans had not just left Council space. They had abandoned their home system entirely, taking everyone and everything with them. No other species in galactic history had ever done anything so extreme. The search expanded outward to humanity's known colonies in the local group. Proxima Centauri B, where humans had first learned to live on alien worlds, was completely empty. New Eden, the agricultural world that had fed millions, showed no signs of recent habitation. Even the fortress world of Titan's Gate, humanity's strongest military base, was silent and dark. On Proxima Centauri B, the search team found Dr. Ellen Shaw's abandoned research laboratory. Ellen had been studying quantum physics and dimensional theory before the evacuation. Her notes were scattered across her desk, as if she had left in a great hurry. "Look at this," said Dr. Krelan as she studied the human writing. She mentions something called Project Exodus and provides coordinates pointing toward the galactic rim. The coordinates led them to the very edge of known space, where few ships ever traveled, because there was nothing to find except empty darkness and distant stars. It took weeks of searching before they found anything useful. Meanwhile, back in Council space, the disasters continued to pile up. On the industrial world of Vega 7, factory owner Glix Nor watched his manufacturing empire collapse before his eyes. The human engineers who had designed his automated systems were gone, and nobody else understood how the machinery worked. "Production has dropped 70%, he reported to his board of directors. "Half our equipment breaks down faster than we can repair it. The human maintenance protocols make no sense to our technicians." Similar stories came from across the galaxy. The humans had not just provided military protection and humanitarian aid. They had been involved in countless technical, scientific, and industrial operations that other species had taken for granted. Without human knowledge and expertise, galactic civilization was literally falling apart. The search mission followed, clue after clue toward the galactic rim. They found abandoned human supply depots with navigation logs pointing further outward. They discovered automated beacons with cryptic messages about new frontiers and greater purposes. After months of searching, Ambassador Krelan's mission finally detected a faint signal near the very edge of the galaxy. It was a human distress beacon, old and weak, but it gave them their first real lead in almost a year. The signal led them to a small, unremarkable star system that appeared on no galactic charts. There was nothing special about this place, just a yellow star with a few rocky planets and some asteroid fields. But as they got closer, their sensors detected something artificial. "I am reading a structure on the third planet," reported Shard Dancer. "It appears to be a space station of human design." The station was automated and clearly very old. As they approached, it began broadcasting a simple message in multiple languages. The main transmission was in Standard Galactic, but there were versions in Karkaran, Thraxian, Hexapod, and dozens of other languages. "This is Beacon Station Alpha," the message said in a calm female voice. "Humanity has relocated beyond the galactic rim for the safety and well-being of all species. Do not attempt to follow, this is your only warning." The message was signed by Admiral Kate Sullivan, and it included technical data that proved it was genuine. But there was something else, an addendum that made Ambassador Krelan's blue eyes widen with shock. "We came to this galaxy hoping to find friends and allies," the addendum continued. "We tried to help where we could and protect those who needed protection. You told us we were not wanted. We listened. Now we serve those who actually appreciate what we have to offer." The implications hit Krelan like a physical blow. If humanity had moved beyond the galactic rim, they had potentially made contact with extragalactic civilizations. The humans might have found allies among beings that the Council had never even imagined. "Send this message to the Council immediately," she ordered her communications officer. "Maximum priority." But as the Peacemaker prepared to leave the beacon system, another message began broadcasting. This one was different, newer, and it carried an energy signature that made their sensors go crazy with warnings. "This is Captain Roy Mitchell of the United Earth Systems," the new voice said. "We have received your communications and requests for contact. Humanity is willing to discuss the current galactic situation with Council representatives." Krelan felt hope surge through her heart. The humans were willing to talk. "However," Captain Mitchell continued, "any discussions will take place under the authority of the Cosmic Confederation, of which humanity is now a founding member. Earth no longer recognizes Galactic Council jurisdiction over human affairs, the Cosmic Confederation." Krelan had never heard of such an organization, and that terrified her more than anything else that had happened. What had the humans found beyond the rim? Who were they working with now? Prepare a response message, she told her crew. Tell them the Council accepts their terms and requests immediate contact to discuss galactic stabilization. As the message was transmitted into the darkness beyond the rim, Krelan could only hope that humanity would be willing to save the galaxy that had thrown them away. The news of humanity's message spread through Council space faster than light itself. Within hours, every government, every news service, and every worried citizen knew that the humans had responded to their desperate search. But the message also brought terrifying questions that no one could answer. What was the Cosmic Confederation? Who else lived beyond the galactic rim? How powerful were humanity's new allies? Chancellor Vex called another emergency session, but this time the Great Chamber was filled with fear instead of anger. The delegates who had once voted proudly to expel humanity now whispered nervously about what they had unleashed. The humans claimed to represent something called the Cosmic Confederation, Vex announced to the Assembly. We have no information about this organization in our databases. Counselor Dexmu raised one of her 6 arms. If humanity has made contact with extragalactic civilizations, we may be dealing with powers far beyond our understanding. They could have technologies we cannot even imagine, added Subcommander Krill, water dripping from his gills as he spoke. We may have driven our own species into the hands of enemies. But Hivemind Zek, who had been one of the loudest voices calling for human expulsion, finally admitted what everyone was thinking. We need them back. Whatever it costs, whatever they demand, we need the humans to help us survive this crisis. The Council authorized increasingly desperate attempts to contact humanity. They broadcast messages of apology across all frequencies. They offered full reinstatement with expanded voting rights. They even promised to give humans leadership positions in Council government. All of their messages went unanswered. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued to burn. The sectarian empire had conquered 12 star systems and showed no signs of stopping. Pirate fleets controlled the major trade routes. Refugee camps overflowed with homeless and starving beings. Plague worlds begged for medical help that no one could provide. On Sanctuary Station's former coordinates, something impossible happened. A new structure appeared overnight, materializing out of empty space like a dream becoming real. It was clearly human in design, but unlike anything in Council databases. The station was massive, larger than most space cities, and it radiated energy patterns that made no sense to galactic science. The station's appearance sent shockwaves through Council space. How had the humans built something so large without anyone detecting it? How had they moved it into position without being seen? Captain Roy Mitchell emerged from the station in response to frantic Council communication attempts. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and graying hair, wearing a uniform that bore insignia no Council database could identify. His ship, the UES Redemption, seemed to bend the laws of physics just by existing. We received your messages, Captain Mitchell said during the first direct communication between humans and the Council in over a year. Humanity has considered your requests for assistance. Behind him on the station, Ambassador Krelan could see humans working alongside, beings that defied imagination. There were tall, graceful entities that seemed to be made of living light. Creatures that looked like they were carved from crystal moved through the corridors. Most amazing of all, there were beings that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. You told us to leave Council space. Captain Mitchell continued, his voice calm but firm. So we did. We found others beyond the rim. Civilizations that have watched your galactic community with great interest. Chancellor Vex swallowed what remained of his pride completely. The Galactic Council formally requests humanity's return to Council membership. We acknowledge our error and offer full reinstatement with expanded privileges and territories. Captain Mitchell's expression did not change. That is a generous offer, Chancellor, but humanity no longer operates under Council jurisdiction. We answer to the Cosmic Confederation now, a union of 37 galaxies working together for mutual peace and prosperity. The revelation stunned every being in the Council chamber. 37 galaxies. While they had been arguing about mining rights and trade disputes, Humanity had helped create an alliance spanning distances they could barely comprehend. However, Captain Mitchell continued, the Confederation is always interested in evaluating new potential members, species that can prove they are ready to move beyond petty conflicts and contribute to something greater than themselves. He transmitted a data package that contained information about Confederation membership requirements. The standards were simple to understand but difficult to achieve. Technological advancement, social unity, and most importantly, a demonstrated commitment to protecting, rather than exploiting, other civilizations. The Confederation judges species, not by how much territory they control or how many resources they possess. Captain Mitchell explained, they are judged by how they treat the weakest among them, how they respond to suffering, and whether they can work together for the common good. As the Council delegates studied the membership requirements, they began to understand how far short they had fallen. The Confederation expected its members to have eliminated poverty, ended internal conflicts, and created societies where every individual could reach their full potential, regardless of their species or origin. When your species are ready to move past the Council's limitations, Captain Mitchell said, when you are prepared to be evaluated by Confederation standards, send a message beyond the rim. We will be listening. Before anyone could respond, the UES Redemption disappeared in a flash of light that did not match any known faster-than-light technology. The massive station remained, but its purpose soon became clear. Within days, ships bearing Confederation markings began arriving throughout Council space. These vessels brought medical supplies to plague worlds, food to starving refugees, and protection to colonies under attack. The beings who crewed these ships came from dozens of different galaxies, working together with an efficiency that amazed Council observers. At the refugee camp on Pharos Prime, Kithra watched as Confederation medical teams set up treatment centers for her sick daughter. The doctors included humans, but also beings she had never seen before. Entities made of flowing energy who could heal with a touch, crystalline creatures whose very presence seemed to cure disease. "Why are you helping us?" she asked Dr. Sarah Kim, a human physician who was treating her child. "Because that is what Confederation members do," Dr. Kim replied simply. "We help those who need help, regardless of politics or boundaries or what species they belong to." It was so different from the Council's approach that Kithra barely knew how to respond. The Council had always demanded payment, favors, or political agreements before providing aid. The Confederation simply helped because help was needed. Months passed, and the contrast between Council dysfunction and Confederation efficiency became impossible to ignore. While Council delegates continued to argue about budgets and jurisdictions, Confederation teams quietly solved crisis after crisis. They stopped the sectarian advance not through massive battles, but by offering the sectarian people something better than conquest: membership in a community where their warrior culture could be channeled into protecting others instead of destroying them. They ended the pirate threat by providing legitimate employment for raiders and giving frontier worlds the technology to defend themselves. They cured the plagues that had killed millions by sharing medical knowledge freely instead of hoarding it for profit. Chancellor Vex watched it all from his chambers on Zentara Prime, feeling older and more tired with each passing day. The carefully balanced system of government he had spent his life building was being shown up by beings who simply did what was right instead of what was profitable. "They make it look so easy," he confided to his aide. "How did we make everything so complicated?" The answer was simple, though Vex was only beginning to understand it. The Council had been built on the idea that different species had to compete for limited resources. The Confederation was based on the belief that working together created unlimited possibilities. As the first year of Confederation presence in Council space came to an end, something unprecedented happened. One by one, individual Council species began requesting information about Confederation membership. They saw the peace and prosperity that came with cooperation, and they wanted to be part of something better. The great irony was not lost on anyone who understood galactic history. Humanity, the species that had been expelled for not following Council rules, had become the gateway to a community that made the Council look primitive and selfish by comparison. The galaxy that had driven humanity away now spent every day working toward the standards necessary to earn their return, not as subjects or junior members, but as equals in something far greater than anyone had ever imagined possible. And in the depths of space, beyond the rim of the galaxy, Captain Roy Mitchell smiled as he read the latest reports from Council, Space. Humanity had found their true calling not as rulers or conquerors, but as teachers showing others that there was always a better way to live together among the stars.